Hello there, it's Jay here from Jay's Vintage Junk, and today let's have a look what I've got in this box. Basically what I've got here, this was my very first PC. I finally actually got myself another one. What I thought we'd do in this video is have a quick look what I've actually bought here, but before we do that we'll have a quick look at basically what this is, how I got my original one and how I got into computers. So we'll set up on the desk and I'll have a quick show you of an old magazine that I've got, so back in a sec. Right, let me take you back to when I was a kid, when I was 13 or 14, and I was into electronics. That was my hobby basically at the time, repairing things and messing about with anything like that. And this is one of the publications I used to buy. This is Eti Magazine. There was this and Practical Electronics were the two main, well, it was everyday Practical Electronics by the time that I used to buy it. I've been buying this since probably about 1992, and there's all kinds of interesting, as well as the articles you get in here, you get all kinds of interesting adverts and things. And this is what actually got me into my first computer, my first personal computer, IBM compatible personal computer. Now, basically, a friend of mine back at school, we were both, like I said, we were both into the same kind of things, electronics and stuff like this. And he didn't have a PC of his own. He actually had a Commodore 64. But his dad actually had a PC. It was an Epson AX10, if I remember correctly, 286. And we used to go up to his office in his upstairs in his house and use that old Epson 286 PC, and I absolutely loved what I mean, I had an Amiga 1200 at the time. I'd just upgraded from an Amiga 500 Plus to an Amiga 1200. This would have been around about 1993, and well, my Amiga 1200, it was only stock. It had no expansions or upgrades or anything, but I mean the graphics on it, the GUI and everything was fantastic. And like I said, this old Epson 286, there was just something about it that made me really want to play about with PCs, but they were just massively out of my price range. I was at school, I was still a school kid. And I just really wanted a PC to play with, just to understand how they worked and what I could do with one. Anyway, like I said, I was looking in this magazine, and there was a company that used to advertise. They used to advertise both in here and in Everyday Practical Electronics. And this is their advert here. And it's Bull Electronics. Bull Electrical, and basically they used to sell all kinds of like salvage, surplus, faulty things, you name it. I mean, I'll just zoom you in so you can have a look at some of the type of things you used to be able to buy from Bull Electronics. If we look here, you could buy a GX 4000 games console, faulty, without a game, for £9 each. Or you could even buy a Commodore 64 computer, again, returns, so spares a repair, £9 each. This is the type of thing that Bull Electronics used to sell. And if we look here, basically massive warehouse clearance, £20 reductions. And it was a refurbished PC base unit, complete with keyboard, only £29. Now, like I said, I was a school kid, but I managed to scrape together £29. And what I got for my £29 was an Amstrad 512, so a 512K version, base unit with a single 360K floppy drive and a keyboard. That's basically all you got for your £29. And as the advert tells you, where is it? It's just add a monitor and power supply. for a complete computer system. Now, I was quite naive at the time. I didn't even know what these Amstrad PCs were, so I spent my £29 and I literally just got a base unit and a keyboard, and then I realised that you needed a special monitor with the power supply built into it to actually use the thing. Anyway, I managed to cobble together a power supply, and I managed to get some other bits together and actually get that system up and running just like that, and that was my first actual IBM compatible PC. So what I thought we'll do, I'll get you zoomed out and we'll have a look in this box and see what exactly I've got now, and then we'll have a look a little bit further into it. So back in a sec. Right, let's see what we've got. Now, I will say first, this came from a trader on eBay. This was actually bought for me as a birthday present, but it did come from an eBay trader who does sell, you know, vintage computer hardware and things like that. What I've been told is, from what the pictures I've seen, it does power up, so it does actually run. This actually has got a hard drive in it, but the hard drive is not fully working. It sometimes apparently it boots, other times it fails to boot. So I'm not too worried about that. I do have other hard drives we could fit to this. I actually do have an original one that was originally fitted to an Amstrad PC1512 and controller card if we can't do anything with the one that's actually in here. But these computers are getting really quite expensive and quite hard to get. I don't know why. I mean, there was an incredibly cheap PC in the time. There really was. It was about as cheap as you could get, but they are becoming rather collectible now. So hopefully it's arrived in one piece. I must admit the chaps packed it fairly well. Can't see it's going to have got damage. That's the only thing with these, is it's all plastic, and obviously this is now 30-year-old plastic. These are from the very late 1980s, very early 1990s. Right, I'll get the box out of the way, and there we go. That is an Amstrad. In fact, this is a slightly better one than I had my original one of these. This is actually a PC512, and it is the HD20. So this always had a hard drive in it, as where the original one that I had was a PC512 SD, because it had just had a single 360k floppy drive. At the end of it, actually, because I ended up with quite a few of these with doing, because I used to basically repair computers and buy and sell computers back in the late 90s. And at one point I had about 4 or 5 of these, and literally they all went to landfill. I tipped them. I'm kicking myself now. I really wish I could throw in a couple more of these up in the attic. I had like a really top of the range one as well. It was a PC1640, so it had the RAM upgrade in it. It had the ECD colour monitor, which was essentially an EGA colour monitor. It had the 360 and a 5.25 inch floppy drive, and it had a I think it was a 32 megabyte hard card in it for the hard disk drive. So it was literally as maxed out of one of these as you could actually get. In fact, I think I even had an ad-lib sound card in it at one point. So it was really as maxed out as you can get as one of these. I don't know whether to go that far with this one, or just get it as the computer I had originally, basically. I didn't have, like I said, this is all I got. I just got the base unit and the keyboard. That's actually a very good point to put out to. If you're going after one of these and you want one of these Amstrad PC, like I said, either 1512 or 1640, there's ways we can get around the monitor. The monitor isn't as big a problem as you'd initially think. Power supply, again, isn't as big a problem as you'd initially think. The keyboard, however, you can't use a standard XT keyboard on one of these. It's a proprietary keyboard. If you noticed, when I opened that box, it didn't come with a keyboard. That's one of the reasons I got this at a reasonable price. It didn't have a keyboard with it. Fortunately, I knew that I had one in the attic. Now this is going to need some work as well, because this has been in the attic, in my attic, since the late 90s. My attic wasn't boarded, and I boarded that about 20 years ago, so this did spend a few years up in an unboarded, uninsulated attic, and it's full of bits and it's absolutely filthy. But we do have the correct keyboard for this system, and we should be able to easily get that back. In fact, I might even have a couple more of them. I do think I might have thrown a couple more of these up in there. I don't think I've got my original one. My original one actually had a French keyboard on it. That was the other thing with these cheap computers. Actually, I didn't realise at first, but it actually came with a French keyboard. Not that that was a major problem. There was just a couple of different accents on it and things like that. But yeah, if you're looking at actually having a play with one of these things, and they are a nice system to actually have in a collection. It's best if you get the entire system. They came with 3 flavours of monitor. These you got I believe a CGA mono monitor, which was the MD version, the mono display version. You got them with a CGA colour monitor, which was basically the standard colour version, or you got them with the ECD colour monitor, which was the enhanced colour display, which was essentially an EGA monitor. That was your options. I don't believe these outputted a Hercules video or a mono video. I think it was actually mono CGA. I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty certain that's right, because the way I got my original one of these actually working back in the day, I managed to actually off my friend that had the Epson. His dad upgraded from a Hercules monitor and Hercules graphics card to a CGA monitor and CGA graphics card at some point, and he had the old monitor and card lying around in a drawer in a box, and I managed to get them off him. And that's actually how I got my original Amstrad working. Essentially what I did was, in fact, let's have a look inside this thing while we've got it on the desk, and we can actually go through it. I do notice we've got a little bit of corrosion on the battery contacts there. That's nothing. That was one of the other thing, was where most computers that had a battery backed up clock, a real-time clock and everything, you know, they used a little barrel battery on the board which tend to leak and damage, or they use a coin cell or something. Amstrad basically just used 4 AA batteries in a holder on the top there. So apart from a little bit of corrosion actually up there, hopefully there shouldn't really be any other damage. So anyway, let's go in this thing. Other nice thing is the case actually looks in reasonable condition, and it's got all its covers on it. So we've got our top cover here, which hides our expansion ports. So we should have, I think it's 3 ISA. Yeah, we've got 3 8-bit ISA slots down there. One of them obviously is currently being used by that 8-bit hard drive card. But we've got 2 other spare slots down there. This obviously comes off to reveal our slots for expansion, which is quite nice. Put that back on. It actually doesn't look as yellowed as it did on the pictures. On the pictures, this did look reasonably yellowed. It doesn't appear to be quite as yellowed as it did. Right, so we've got DC in there, and we've got a video output there. Like I said, it's not your standard 9-pin video output, although the signals coming out of it are your standard PC signals. We might, if we're really lucky, actually be able to make an adapter up for that and actually run this thing on a proper CGA monitor. I might have a DIMM plug that'll fit that. That's a possibility. That's one way we might be able to get this thing actually working. When you get a DC input, we want 5 volts and 12 volts. Now that DC power plug there, I don't honestly think we're going to be able to find an actual plug to fit that. And I didn't back in the day when I had my original one. I couldn't find a plug that actually fit that. Fortunately, what I did find is down on the board there's a pin header with ground, 5 and 12 volts, and that is actually how I originally powered my my one of these up. I scrounged an old power supply. I can't even remember what it was off, but I remember it gave the correct voltage out. It gave out 5 volt and 12 volts. And I literally used the little connector inside there and had the power supply sat behind it. I had a Hercules card in there and a Hercules monitor on top of it, and that is how I originally used my original Amstrad. In fact, shall we get the top off this and we can have a quick look inside it? I'm not going to try and power it up on this video. Purely because I need to figure out power supplies and how I'm going to actually do it, what I'm going to actually do. I might even see if I can find a Hercules card kicking about somewhere that we could stick in this. Now I know I've got a Hercules monitor lying around. Obviously the easiest way would be with a VGA card, but I don't know at the moment where my VGA card, which will actually is backwards compatible with an 8-bit slot, is. I know I've got one, I think it's an Oak Technologies, really old VGA card that will actually work in an 8-bit slot. And I mean, if I knew where that was, that would make it easy to test it, because we could just put that in and connect it up to a VGA monitor. But we've got other options. There are definitely other options for us to I don't think that's the correct screw for that. There are other options for us to actually get this thing powered up. Okay. I'll have to pull that free. I think that's been snapped off actually. I don't think that should just come off like that. But hopefully we can get the case off and we can have a look inside it. I have to be super careful with this because I don't want to risk there we go, risk breaking the plastic, because obviously this plastic's going to be quite fragile now after all these years. Right, there we go, we're in. Put that to one side. And I actually have that exact Western Digital hard drive controller card. I have a spare of that. I don't have that Tandon hard drive. I think it's a Seagate that I've got, but it is one of the original ones that would have been fitted to one of these. So if that hard drive is iffy, there is something else we can put in there to replace it. These generally either came with, I think it's RLL rather than MFM, the controller card. Obviously the hard drives are the same, it's just how it configures with the card. They either came with them, or they came with XT, the original XT IDE, so you've got an XT IDE interface and an XT IDE hard drive. That's not to be confused with XT IDE as it is now. This is the original XT IDE standard. Amstrad were one of the companies that actually did use them, and I did come across a few of the 1640s and things, back in the 90s that actually used the XT IDE hard drive controller card, but it was more common to find this RLL card. I've even come across some of these Amstrads that use that RLL controller card. A similar, in fact it might have even been the same tandem hard drive as that, but actually mounted on a metal frame there as a hard card, just in the back of the actual system there. I believe one of the computers that I had back then actually had that that setup in it. I think the one that I had that actually had everything in it with the ECD monitor. That was how that was done. But you could also get aftermarket hard cards, which were very, very commonly found in these Amstrads as well. So you buy like the double disk drive version of one of these and upgrade it with a an aftermarket hard card. That was found very, very often. Let's move that out of the way. Where's everything's going to? Look, that down there, I don't know that header down there, I don't know if you can actually make that out. That's where I originally powered mine up from. I said back when I was a kid off an external power supply. I'm hopeful actually we can do something similar, similar to that with this one. I know from seeing the listing on this one's actually been upgraded to 640k rather than the 512 that it would have originally come with, which is quite a nice little upgrade really. Again, that's something that I did with my original one. In fact, that was one of the first things that I did. Actually went down to a, it's not there anymore, but there was a shop in Ashton near me called Prochrome Electronics, and they used to sell basically electronic components, computer parts. In fact, that's where I got my next computer that I had after my Amstrad. I actually got that from there. That was a 286, but Prochrome Electronics, I could actually go in there and just buy the RAM ICs that I needed. I think it cost me about, I know it was under £10, because I think that's all that I had. But I was able to go in there and actually buy the RAM ICs that I needed to upgrade this to 640k from the 512 that it had. We'll just put this back together for now. There we go, put that in there. I'm going to have missed that shielding out. Let's pull that back out. But it all looks nice and tidy in there. Can't see anything that looks nasty. Not like it's had anything spilt in it. And I did pick up, a while back actually, cheap, a spare motherboard for one of these, because I was intending, if I couldn't actually pick one up like this, was just to see if I keep looking for the parts and actually find a case for that one, or actually make, if I could never find a case for that one, make a case that would house it. But so this turned up at a price that, while although it wasn't cheap, it wasn't horrendous. So I really did fancy one. So it's a shame it wasn't the single, you know, it wasn't the PC1512 SD, which is, like I said, the one that I had. This is the HD20, but that's not, you know, like I said, that's by and by. It's still basically the computer that I had. So I said my plans with this thing. Obviously, first thing we'll have to do is sort out a power supply for it, so we can actually power it up and figure out a way of if I done with it, there it is, and figure out a way of connecting a monitor to it. Like I said, we've got a couple of options there. I might be able to make an adapter up so we can plug into the actual video output there on that DIN plug. I'll have to see if I've got a how many pin is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's an 8 pin with a centre pin DIN. If I can find one of those, I should be able to make an adapter up, and then we can plug this into like a CJ monitor. I've got some. I think I've got some CJ monitors lying around still. We could probably plug it into one of them. That is going to be an issue if we wanted to use that, but like I said, we do have that edge connector inside, that little Molex connector inside, and I do know you can power one of these up. You basically put in power into there, because that's how I did it when I was a kid. But yeah, that's really about all I can really go into on this thing on this video. Oh, other thing I'll show you, and this is another thing back from, I dug it out of my library and I've had it since the 90s. We have, that is the original user manual for this computer. This is going to be very, very handy. I mean, I'm sure you can find the information online, but it's really nice just to have an original manual. Because what this gives us, we've got all the setting up of it. It's basically got something about DOS and Gem Desktop. These didn't run Windows, they ran Gem Desktop instead. Again, that's something else I'd like to do, is get a full setup of Gem and actually get that working on here as well, because I do actually have a mouse for one of these as well. Again, they use their own proprietary mouse that actually plugged into the mouse, actually plugged into the back of the keyboard there, and I do have one up in the attic somewhere, so we can actually get that working, and we could actually get Gem Desktop working on it as well. But what this will have in it is all the things like the jumper settings for configuring it between the different types of monitor that it uses. I believe there's even things about upgrading the RAM, and basically all the information that we need to know to actually work on this computer. You know, here we are, Amstrad PC hardware, the monitor, the keyboard. It's got all the, like I said, we've got all the dip switch settings, jumper settings, how to configure the RAM and things like that. That's all actually contained in the user manual, which is rather nice. So basically, yeah, that's it. This is going to be an upcoming project, I think, trying to get this thing fully up and running. It would be nice to actually get an original monitor, actually, and actually have it as the proper, really nice setup. The problem is, if I get an original monitor for this, I'd really want the ECD one. I mean, then this could make quite an interesting little, you know, retro gaming kind of computer. We can stick an ad-lib card in it, and there's plenty of software that this computer would suit actually really well. It's a 8086 based system. It's got an 8 megahertz 8086, I believe it is. It's even 8088. I think it's an 8086 in these. I'd have to double check. When we actually go into this in the next video and we actually tear it down proper, we'll pull the board out and have a really good look at the motherboard. We'll actually double check which the processor is. I have found these with things like V20s stuck in them, the NEC faster CPUs. People have put them in these Amstrads quite a few times just to get a little bit of extra speed out of them. But they were good computers. Like I said, they were limited, they were fairly basic, but they weren't bad computers. And it would be nice to get this one up to us, like that one that I had really back then, when I had all the parts on it and I had the 2 drives, the hard drive and everything else really done to it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for now. So this was just a quick like intro-ish, show you what I've got kind of video. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching and goodbye.